Okay, the first few problems are going to go pretty fast. For example, this first one is just a unit circle problem. So you're going to find negative 3 pi over 4, so you're going to have to go backwards to 5 pi over 4, and those are the coordinates right there. It should be right on the unit circle, which will be included on the final. Number 2, find blank if cosine is blank. Well, draw out your triangle, make sure you put your negatives. Pythagorean theorem, do SOHCAHTOA. Tangent, you go to this place, sine over cosine, you can do it in your calculator if you need to, but that won't give you radicals, so make sure you simplify appropriately. Number 4, right triangle has those sides, and C is 90 degrees. That should say degrees. Round to the nearest hundredth. Well, if we're trying to find B, we have an opposite and we have an adjacent. So that's going to be 3.2 over 1.4. Take the inverse tangent of both sides to find B. 5, inverse. So the little negative 1 means inverse. So where is sine 1/2? Remember on the unit circle, for sine and tangent, we look here. And for cosine, we look up here. So to find where sine is 1/2, we're going to look there in the first quadrant on that lovely bubble drawing. That's pi over 6. And then cosine of pi over 6 is radical 3 over 2. A person walks 200 feet away from the top of a cell phone tower. Here's my little cell phone tower. From this point, so 200 feet away, from this point, the angle of elevation to the top of the tower is 48 degrees. So we have to look up 48 degrees. They have to look down 48 degrees from up here, this invisible line here. So 48 goes down there. How tall is the tower? Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Okay, we want to find x, which is opposite. We have an adjacent. Very similar to the problem up there, except we need to get x by itself, so instead of the inverse. So we're going to multiply 250, and we'll get 277.65 feet. Find the reference angle. If it's in radians, you always just make it positive, ignore the coefficient in front of pi. If it's in degrees, you need to find the distance to the x-axis, which is what this drawing is showing right there. See, we're just speeding along here. Find the value of that. Well, inverse sine means where is sine radical 2 over 2, that's pi over 4. Where is sine radical 3 over 2, that's pi over 3. Get a common denominator, and that'll be 7 pi over 12. If you went through and you did this in degrees, it would be 105. They're the same value. State the amplitude, period, and phase shift of the function. Amplitude is A, but remember it's the absolute value of A. Period for sine and cosine is 2 pi over b, and b is 2 here. If it was tangent, it would be pi over b. And phase shift, set the parentheses equal to 0. Okay, number 10. Write an equation of the tangent function with the period of pi over 4, phase shift of negative pi over 3, and a vertical shift of 4. So we know that A is 1 because it didn't tell us otherwise. It tells us our period is 4 pi, so this is tangent, so pi over b equals 4 pi. So b is going to be 1/4. Phase shift, set the parentheses equal to 0. So that's going to be to find our c, and we could do it this way. If our phase shift is negative pi over 3, we know that 1/4 x plus whatever value is there equals negative pi over 3. So we would, and we know x is going to be it's not erasing. So we know that, if we were at 1, we would have to multiply by 4, and we would have pi over 12. C equals pi over 12. It's not letting me write or erase right now. And our vertical shift is plus 4. For the next one, the biggest problem with this problem is it says that we're in degrees. So we have 0, basically 2 pi. 2 pi would be 360. So this is actually all the way to 2 pi. So if we look, our cycle ends at 180. So we know our amplitude is 4 because it goes up and down 4. Since it goes down first, our A is negative 4. We're not shifted at all. The biggest deal here is that instead of our period being 2 pi over B, it's going to be 360. So, now I'm writing 360 equals B, or 360 over B equals 180. So multiply by B, divide by 180, divide by 180, and B equals 2. So we have A, we have B, we have our equation. Remember also that this will be multiple choice, so that could help you out in the process. Graph the following equation. So you're going to have to remember that cosecant usually starts up here and goes down here, but it's negative, so it's flipped. You're going to have to keep an eye on the period and the phase shift. Again, remember this is multiple choice. Graph cotangent. Also remember that cosecant and cotangent you cannot do on your calculator unless you do 1 over. So it would be negative 2, 1 over tangent of 3x plus pi minus 1, and that should get you the same graph. So again, we have our period. Remember, tangent and cotangent, the period is pi over b. Phase shift, set the parentheses equal to 0, and vertical shift. Identify the asymptotes of the function. So for tangent, we know that we usually go midline, mid plus a, asymptote, mid minus a, and midline. So our asymptote, we could find our first asymptote here. So we would get our 5 things, first asymptote, and then add the period to it. And the period would be pi over b, which would be pi over 5, and get the second one. Given that these two things are the same thing, what is the range? Well, we talked about the unit circle. And for sine, we look on this side. So this is pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2, which, since if we're talking about sine, this is positive, this is negative, so this would be negative pi over 2. So that would be our range, negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Given the graph below, what is the correct equation? Well, we're going up 3, so plus 3. We are repeating ourselves. It looks like our period is pi. So 2 pi over b equals pi, b equals 2. We have no phase shift. This is an upside down U, so this is cosine, but it's negative. And if we're going to, if 3 is our phase shift, we don't go up to 4, we only go up a half and down a half. Again, remember that it'll be multiple choice, and hopefully that will help you get the answer you need. I'm about at my limit, so you'll check out the rest of the problems in the next video.